Hi guys, and welcome back to another team review episode. So we haven't had one of these episodes in a little while, but we are back today with a team review episode, and we are going to be looking at the Tapu Fini double dark core that we played not this week on the channel, but the 2 weeks prior to that. So we've just come off the back of this week playing Ben Kiriaku's team, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun playing his team, and especially having him on the show on Friday, which was really fun. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that, and hopefully it's something we'll do a bit more in the future and feature a few more other players. So if we can, do keep an eye out for that. So without further ado guys, we'll jump into this episode. So as I said, we are looking at the Tapu Fini double dark core that we played a couple of weeks ago on the channel. So just to quickly go over the team, so you guys are a bit fresher with what we used. We used the Mandibuzz, Kartana, Alolan Muck, Alolan Marowak, Ninetales, and Tapu Fini. So my basic premise of always doing a team build, when I start out, I've got 3 things that I want to kind of pinpoint and make sure I cover, and they are a terrain, a weather, and some sort of speed control as well. So they're the 3 basic starting points. So it's a lot easier this format if you are building around a Tapu, because you pick your Tapu and then you go from there and build around that. So that's one way you can kind of approach team building within this format anyway, and it does make it slightly easier. Once you've got that starting point, you can kind of go off in loads of different directions. So that's something you guys might want to think about going into your own team builds and stuff like that. But you're not restricted, you're not tied to using a Tapu in this format. It does give you a lot of advantages. Not using one does give some disadvantages because you can't always change the terrain and things like that. And one thing I wanted to try out when approaching this team was using Tapu Fini, for a couple of reasons. So Tapu Koko, as you can see from the Global Link website, and I would highly recommend you guys using this. So if you go over to the Global Link website, I'll leave the description in the link in the description below. You go over to the Championship Battle Rules, which are the current VGC 2017 season rules, and then you can go down to Pokemon rankings, and this gives you an update with all of the current usage statistics from the Pokemon on the Battle Spot ladder. So it's a massively useful resource, and one that I would definitely recommend you guys using. As I said, I'll leave the link in the description below, and it just gives you a kind of an overview of what's popular in the current metagame, and you can click into certain Pokemon and it'll give you a really detailed analysis of the more popular moves that are being used, the abilities, the natures, and the held items, etc, etc, and its partners and things like that. So there's a flurry of information, so make sure you're taking advantage of that, guys. But getting back to what I was saying before about Tapu Fini, so there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to use Tapu Fini. We have featured it on the team before, and it is one of the Tapus that I do really enjoy playing. So Tapu Fini has the Misty terrain, and the terrains work based on speed tiers. So Tapu Fini being one of the slower Tapus in the format, obviously Tapu Bulu being the slowest. So you've got Tapu Koko and Tapu Lele, which are your more common Tapus, as you can see from the Global Link rankings. And if you lead Tapu Fini into a Tapu Lele or an opposing Tapu Koko, you're guaranteeing that you're going to be getting your Misty terrain up, and they're not going to be setting their terrain. Now the thing is, with Tapu Koko and Tapu Lele, they really rely on their terrain being on the field to get the most kind of buck for their boot almost. So Tapu Koko wants that electric type boost when it's out on the field. Tapu Lele wants the psychic terrain up so it can get the extra boost on its psychic type attacks and do as maximum damage as possible. So by just initially disrupting that, it kind of disrupts your opponent's momentum right from the start. The other thing is with the Misty terrain is it supports the rest of your team from status conditions as well. Anything grounded is, as long as Misty terrain's up, can't be burned, can't be put to sleep, can't be paralyzed. So that's a really, can't be confused and things like that. So that's a really nice aspect of the Misty terrain that I really like. So that was one of the reasons. So I wanted to build around Tapu Fini. So I had my Tapu. Now I wanted as well to include a weather. As we can see from the usage search, Garchomp is huge, and again, we have used Ninetales previously on the channel, but I did want to include it in this team because I just feel like Aurora Veil is such a good move, and just gives so much support to the entirety of the team. That was something I wanted to play around with as well, because the Ninetales that we've played previously, we never ran Aurora Veil on it for some reason, so it was going to be something nice to try out with the rest of the team this time around. So we've got our Tapu for our terrain, we've got Tapu Fini, we've got our weather, and then we need speed control. And one popular pairing that we've seen used many times throughout this format so far is Tapu Fini and Mandibuzz. So I thought, well, Mandibuzz gives the ability, it allows you speed control and tailwind. You can put a Misty Seed on it, so you're getting the special defensive boost as well. So it seemed like quite a good partner for Tapu Fini, and something that I did want to try out. It has been used to a lot of success previously in the season with popular cores around that, so it was something that I wanted to try out myself. So that included that, and that covered the speed control. So we've got Ninetales, Tapu Fini, and Mandibuzz. One problem with the Tapu Fini Mandibuzz is they are both extremely weak to electric type attacks, so that was something I have to have a look at and try and cover. Now, one thing from looking at the usage stats at the minute is, let's have a look. Can we find it? Little old Marowak down in 18th. Now, at the very start of the format, Marowak was everywhere. Like, everyone was using Marowak because the popularity of Tapu Koko, and everyone was teching against Marowak, etc, etc. Since then, Marowak's usage stats have went down, and people have been less inclined to tech against Marowak because it's not as popular. You've got things like Garchomp in the format that can nuke it with a Tectonic Rage. You know, Tapu Lele hits it very hard. Tapu Fini puts it under a lot of pressure. But it has its niche, and I think against, when you're pairing it with something like Tapu Fini and Mandibuzz, it can provide a lot of support, especially if you're using a setup Tapu Fini, or you need to set up a Tailwind with the Mandibuzz, and you need to just get around that big electric type attack that could be coming out from, say, a Gigavolt from an Arcanine or something like that. It's safe to switch in your Marowak on an Arcanine. You're not really threatened too heavily from anything that it can do to the Marowak, and if it does go for the Gigavolt Havoc when you switch it in, as we've seen me do in many of the games that we played, Marowak came in very handy for supporting against those big electric type attacks. So it was something that I wanted to include. It really does put a lot of pressure on Tapu Koko as well. It hits Kartana very hard. It has potential to KO Tapu Lele. And Porygon 2 is obviously as popular as ever, and people are more inclined to using the Bolt Beam combo again, so it really shuts that down. It stops Porygon 2 becoming a big threat to Marowak. And it just is, it's a good utility Pokemon. Obviously has the ability to really deal a lot of damage to things like Celesteela as well. So let's go back to the team builder. So we've got the Mandibuzz, the Ninetales, Tapu Fini, and the Marowak. Now we've got our speed control there. The other inclusion, really, the Kartana and the Muck. At the time of putting the team together, there was a very popular core kind of coming through within the format that I was very wary of, and I definitely wanted to have a way to deal with, and that was Mr. Snorlax and Mimikyu. So Gavin Michaels obviously ran that combo at a US regional, had a lot of success with it, and since then a lot of players have kind of got on board that wagon, and it's a very threatening combination because the Mimikyu can set up the Trick Room. It has potential as a Destiny Bond. It has Taunt to stop you taunting the Snorlax. So I really wanted to have a solid way around that, and one way I kind of thought about dealing with it was with the inclusion of Muck and Kartana. So we can have the Mimikyu and the Snorlax out in the field, and my thought process to this was, there's no point of having a taunt user there because we can taunt the Mimikyu, but then we're not stopping the Belly Drum. So I wanted a pairing that could really put a lot of pressure on both Pokemon at the same time, and really shut down the whole kind of momentum gaining strategy of that combination. So basically, if the Mimikyu gets a Trick Room off, then it's pretty much game if the Snorlax Belly Drums that same turn. So one idea I had to get around that was to have the priority Shadow Sneak from Muck into the Mimikyu, and then I can Smart Strike it with the Kartana, which will always pick up the KO. And then the next turn, hopefully all being well, we get the Beast Boost, and then we've got the Fight TMZ, which can, you know, KO a Snorlax from full health. We also have the knockoff from the Muck to get rid of the berry to stop the recycling and things like that. So it does work nicely against that pairing. And, you know, at the end of the day, you lead that against the Mimikyu, Snorlax, you're putting a lot of pressure on your opponent straight away and more than likely forcing the switch. So you can read into certain battle situations and kind of react from that and start gaining momentum on your own side of the field. So that was the reason for that. Also having the double Dark Core on the team, I wasn't too worried about the fairy weakness that you get. The Muck is neutral against it because of the poison type with the Dark, but it's the nice psychic resistance that you get and the options that you've got when you because you're not always going to bring both Pokemon to the same game. So you've got at least one option every game to switch in on things like Shattered Psyches. And it does put your opponent under a lot of pressure in those situations where they're a bit hesitant whether you're going to switch in the Mandibuzz or the Muck on that slot that they're Z-moving into. So that was a nice aspect. The inclusion of the Marowak did throw up a few problems, and it will throw up problems in team building, because when you look at the Pokemon rankings, you've got Arcanine here, and Arcanine, for very good reason, is #1 in the format at the moment, because it's got that nice fire typing, it can fit on teams to provide that coverage, and it's got the Intimidate, and it's bulky, and it's got moves like Snarl, it's got Helping Hand, Will-O-Wisp, etc, etc, etc. It's a very versatile supporter and an attacker in this metagame. Probably the best Intimidate user we've got in the format, so it's no surprise that it's #1. But the thing is, with putting Marowak into the team, is you've already got your fire type, so you don't really want to include another fire type and double up on those weaknesses to rock, ground, water, etc, etc. So you kind of got to decide whether you want to put, because I always like including Intimidate in my teams. I think it's one of the best abilities in the format, just being able to straight away, no setup involved, you just bring your Pokemon out with Intimidate and your opponent is less inclined and less powerful than they were prior to that Intimidate. So it's just a very good, and you can cycle Intimidate, etc, etc. So we don't have that in the team. I could have put Gyarados in, but then again we're doubling up on an electric type of weakness again with the Mandibuzz and the Tapu Fini, and then it puts a lot more pressure on the Marowak in its supporting role, and I didn't really feel very comfortable with that. So you've got Crocodile. I could have put Crocodile in the team, but then it didn't really seem like it fit in. So I kind of went for the Ninetales as our kind of proxy Intimidate support with the Aurora Veil. So as long as you can get the Aurora Veil up, you've almost got the equivalent of an Intimidate without having an Intimidate user, and you get the special defensive boost as well there. The problem that I found after testing the team is you can't always bring the Ninetales to every game, because there's just some games where you've got your opponent's team is full of things that are going to just cause Ninetales problems to no end, like in Gigalith and stuff like that. You just can't really afford to bring the Ninetales because it's just not going to be doing enough in the game itself. And I think that is a problem, because you don't have we don't have a backup option to that Aurora Veil. So we have very bulky Pokemon in the team, like the Muck, the Mandibuzz, especially with the Misty Seed. We've got the Calm Mind option on Tapu Fini, but it's always nice to have that Intimidate or the Aurora Veil support as a backup on top of that, and it just kind of makes those defenses that you've already got go a lot further. And the games where I couldn't bring the Ninetales sometimes did feel very punishing, because I didn't have any way to kind of nerf my opponent or stop a Beast Boost, reduce a Dragon Dance, etc, etc. So that was one of the things I would definitely look at changing, and it's going to be a conflicting issue if you ever use Marowak in your team concept. The other hand of that, you've got the Lightning Rod ability that Marowak offers, which offers such good support to the Tapu Fini. It offers support to everything on the team, because everything is hit by electric type attacks either neutrally or super effectively. So you are supporting pretty much everything else on the team with the Marowak, and it does disrupt things like Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko is going to be forced to use Dazzling Gleam, which you can take advantage of. So that was really more... That was the reason why. I just feel like Marowak at the moment in the metagame was something I wanted to bring back and test out. I do still like Marowak. I can see why it's a problem, like I've just explained with the Arcanine, because Arcanine, it's hard to argue not to put Arcanine in your team. If you want a successful solid core, Arcanine is probably one of the first things you're going to kind of include in your team, just because of its utility and the Intimidate. But we'll not go on and on and on about that, guys. We'll get a bit more in depth with the team. So we'll start off with the Mandibuzz. Here we've got the moveset I kind of chose was Foul Play. It offers really solid damage. You're not relying on your attack stat or anything like that. You're relying on your opponent's attack stat. It does very good damage to things like Garchomp, to things like Kartana, Pheromosa, Metagross. The list goes on and on and on. The other thing that the Mandibuzz offers good coverage against is Drifblim, Tapu Lele, which we have at the point of making this team. It wasn't massively popular, but it started to creep into the format a bit more than it had been. And Mandibuzz is very good against Drifblim because of the dark typing. It is resisting those ghost type attacks. Drifblim is only known to carry Shadow Ball as its main attacking move, so you're going to be able to sit in front of it and take as many of those as you want, and you can just foul play it and it's going to be doing very good damage to the opposing Drifblim. The other thing is you're not worried about getting Will-O-Wisped, which some Drifblims carry, and you've got the Tailwind to match their Tailwind as well. So, and the bonus over using Mandibuzz over Drifblim, in my opinion, is you've got that option of recovery. Drifblim, I feel, is very good, but it lacks the recovery option that Mandibuzz has. So that's a nice benefit of using Mandibuzz over Drifblim in certain situations. So we've got Foul Play, Taunt. Taunt is very good for shutting down things like we mentioned before, the Snorlax, Porygon 2s, etc, etc. It's a very good utility Pokemon and gives a lot of support to the rest of the team. We've got the Tailwind, which supports the Marowak, Muck, Ninetales, Fini and Kartana if we need it, and then the recovery, which just makes Mandibuzz a massive pain for your opponent to deal with, because you can stick around on the field for as long as you want, playing it right and supporting it right, and just keep foul playing things, setting up tailwinds, taunting things, and just really disrupting your opponent's strategy from the start. So we've got the EV spread for Mandibuzz: 244 health, 44 defense, 204 special defense, and 12 speed. And a bold nature. So the 12 speed is a little bit interesting. I wanted to make sure that we were outspeeding max speed Pheromosas in a Tailwind, and with that I'm pretty sure we do. So let's just quickly flick over to the damage calculator here. And guys, I don't know if I've mentioned this before on the channel, so the TrainerTower website is an amazing resource for any VGC Pokemoners out there. I'll leave the links to the damage calculator and the site in the description below, so do go and check it out. It's very good articles on there, and like I say, the resources that are in this site are just absolutely amazing and something that you really want to start taking advantage of, especially the damage calculator that we've got here. It's just an invaluable tool for team building and EVing. So as I said, I'll leave the link in the description below. But getting back to my point, Pheromosa, max speed Pheromosa, not max speed Pheromosa, but you know, max EV'd Pheromosa on say an Adamant or Modest or whatever. So we're not boosting the speed there, but it hits a speed stat of 203. So I wanted to make sure with my 102 in Tailwind that would take us to 204. We're outspeeding Pheromosa by 1 point. You don't really see Pheromosas running max speed positive natured anywhere, because there's just no need to have that speed investment for the majority of the time. It will work for certain situations, but you're gonna opt more for the attacking stats on Pheromosa. It makes a lot more sense for the beast boosts and things like that. So that was the premise of the speed EVs there. That was literally it. I just wanted to make sure I could benchmark the Pheromosa, outspeed it, and as you see, we're going to be easily picking up a 2-hit KO with the foul play on it, just because of its huge attack stat. And I mean, even if you drop that down, so it's minimum attack, which you would never likely get, but just for the sake of it, we still got a roll 32% chance to 2-hit KO it, and it's not really going to be doing too much back to us because of those big defenses. The defenses and the EVs do help us against things like Gigalith, so we can always make sure that we're able to take a Stone Edge from a man against the, get the Tailwind up. The other big ones that we wanted to make sure that we were kind of able to take the big attacks were a Tapu Koko with its electric type attack. I wanted to make sure that we were surviving the Gigavolt Havoc in electric terrain, so we'd get the Misty Seed boost. You've got to have that to survive that, but the Gigavolt Havoc is something that I wanted to make sure that we were able to take. You also want to make sure that you're able to take the Twinkle Tackle from the Tapu Koko as well, even a modest one. Let's have a look. That is, yeah, we're clicked in there. So yeah, we're easily able to take that, and it's only got it's got a good chance of 2-hit KO, but you only get one Z move, so it's fine. And that allows us to set the Tailwind up. And the other thing you've got to think about as well is we do have the Marowak and the team that supports for those electric type attacks. Xurkitree again is another Pokemon you have to be a bit careful of, but with the boost, we're surviving the modest 252 Xurkitree Gigavolt Havoc. Obviously not in a psychic terrain, but it's likely that we can kind of get terrain control ourselves with the Tapu Fini and take advantage of it that way. And the other thing is we have the Marowak as well, so we're not too concerned about that. But you can't always rely on, if you've got redirection like Storm Drain with Gastrodon or Lightning Rod with Marowak or Togedemaru, you can't always rely on having that Pokemon in that particular situation where an electric type attack is threatening you. So it's nice having that extra assurance, knowing that you're able to take those attacks in the first place. It kind of gives you a bit more freedom and leeway with what moves you want to make in that particular turn. The other thing I wanted to make sure that Mandibuzz was able to deal with was the Tapu Lele. So if we go and punch in the Life Orb on it, we can see we're easily able to take a Life Orb Moonblast from a Tapu Lele, which is really nice. So Mandibuzz really is set up to take pretty much any attack that comes out to it in the metagame. Let's have a look at the Araquanid, because that's got one of the biggest Z moves in the game. So you can see the Hydro Vortex from the Liquidation from a 252 Brave Araquanid isn't KOing Mandibuzz. So we're able to get that Trick Root, the Tailwind off if we need to in that situation, or a Taunt off onto a possible Porygon 2, etc, etc. So just basically showing how much of a beast really Mandibuzz is, and it can take a flurry of attacks, and a lot of the time it forces your opponent to kind of double into the Mandibuzz to try and KO it, and a lot of times they will fail because it's just so bulky, especially with the Misty Seed. So there's the basics around the Mandibuzz, and it offers so much support, and I really did like it. I think things that I would look at changing, I'd try maybe look at putting Snarl on the set, maybe getting rid of the Taunt, because we've got other options in the team where we can put Taunt if we really needed it, but I just feel like the Snarl would give us a bit more extra support, especially things like Kartana and Marowak that do get hit a bit harder than you kind of would like them to initially with the more popular special attacks in the format. So there's our Mandibuzz. The next Pokemon we'll look at is the Kartana, and this is a little bit interesting, this Kartana. So we've got Sacred Sword, Smart Strike, Protect and Leaf Braid, so it's pretty standard Kartana spread. You've kind of got all the moves there that you want to include to give you the coverage that you need within this format. But the item choice is a little bit different from usual, so I have opted to go for the Fightium Z, which is the all-out pummeling fighting type Z move. And the EV spread is super simple. The basic premise was I wanted Kartana in the team because it outspeeds things like Tapu Lele. You base 100 Pokemon, it outspeeds Garchomp, etc, etc, etc. It just gives you that good speed tier, and I didn't really want to mess around with that. I wanted to make sure that I was outspeeding things like Nihilego, and at least speed time with other Kartanas, because the nice thing with running the Fightium Z on this Kartana is, against other Kartanas, even if I lose the speed tie, I know even without an Intimidate on the team, I'm able to take a Sacred Sword from an opposing Kartana, and I can guarantee a KO back on that Kartana as long as it's not focus sashed with the Fightium Z on theirs. So it's nice on the one-on-one. And even if they've got sash, I've got things like the Hail from the Ninetales as well to kind of pick up the sash. I've got Shadow Sneak on the Muck as well for that sort of thing, so they're little inclusions as well to kind of pick up on that. The other nice things about Kartana were, so I just wanted to go max. I didn't really want to mess around too much with the Kartana, to be honest, but I'm pretty sure that there was 4 HP, 4 EVs in HP, but I think I moved it to defense. Let's have a quick look. So yeah, it's not anything to do with that. I try to remember, but it doesn't really make any difference. The basic premise was I wanted it to be hitting as hard as possible and to be as fast as it possibly could, which we kind of achieved. The 4 in defense was just dumped there, as it was a little bit left over. So basic premise behind the Fightium Z was that with a, let's just knock it on. So let's get rid of that. Sorry guys, you didn't need to see my text coming through. So yeah, the basic premise was with the Fightium Z, if I can get a beast boost with Kartana prior to Porygon 2 possibly coming on the field, or if I can get just a smart strike off on Porygon 2, and then with the Sacred Sword, the all-out pummeling, even on a -1, you're kind of guaranteeing the 2-hit KO on Porygon 2, which is pretty huge. And if you've got the +1 already when it comes onto the field, you're guaranteeing the KO there. Things like Gigalith as well. I don't know if it actually picks up yet, so we definitely get the KO on Gigalith, even without the Beast Boost prior to that, which is really nice. And that's just your standard 228, 52 defense Gigalith. So we could probably go, yeah, max speed and then up to what are we going to be KOing. So right up to 84 defensive EVs on the Gigalith, which is pretty nice. And just to have that kind of security, because if you look at the team, Gigalith does cause a few issues for, you know, things like Mandibuzz, Marowak, Ninetales. You've only really got the Kartana and the Tapu Fini that don't get hit super effectively from those rock type attacks, and can hit back with super effective attacks, you know, from your side of the field. So Gigalith was a bit of a problem, and just having that nuke there with the all-out pummeling on Kartana did give the nice option to kind of clear it off the field as quick as possible. So that was the other option on there. Like I say, the EVs are super simple, guys. I didn't really want to mess around too much with anything. And the other thing as well was, if I get the Mimikyu Snorlax, so like I was saying before, if I can get rid of the Mimikyu, get the Beast Boost with the Kartana, if we go all out pummeling on a Snorlax, we've already got the Beast Boost, so it would be neutral nature. If they switched in an Intimidator like Arcanine after the Mimikyu went down, we're still able to get the KO onto Snorlax with the all-out pummeling, which is pretty nice. So basically, we'd be +1 after KO on the Mimikyu. The Snorlax gets a Billy Drum off, gets all its health back. Then they switch in Arcanine, that takes us back down to neutral, and then we're still, like you can see here, the Sacred Sword is still guaranteeing the KO on quite a bulky standard Snorlax, so that's pretty nice. The other thing it offers as well is it offers another big nuke on things like Arcanine as well. So even on -1, we're doing 50% to Arcanine, which is pretty huge. You know, if you're in a really tight situation where you've previously chipped the Arcanine down, or if you've taken a Beast Boost and it comes in, so you're on neutral now, like neutral attack stat, you're doing 77 minimum to 91. So you just need that little bit of like 23% chip on the Arcanine to guarantee the KO on it, which is pretty huge. And then you're getting around activating the berry and things like that. So it's just another option to be able to hit things like that are big threats like Arcanine, where you wouldn't have had such a good option prior to that. So it was something I wanted to test out, and I did like it, but I don't think it's the most optimal item on Kartana. It definitely has its niche against certain teams, and it's very good against things like Porygon 2 that are very popular in the format at the minute. But I think there are maybe better sets and spreads to run on Kartana other than the Fight TMZ. But that's just my personal opinion. It's definitely worth giving it a go. And the one thing I will say about the 252 spread, it's not like me to normally just have very simple spreads like that, but don't shy away from spreads like that, guys, especially when you're testing a team out. You just want to test it. If it's doing a very good job, it's something you can look at later on, but initially when you're first playing things, it's a lot easier just to, you know, if you've got in mind what you want that Pokemon to do, like I want a Kartana to hit that speed stat that it does, the 177. There's no need to mess around with it. You just do that, and if you just want it there to hit as hard as possible, then there's no reason around not putting max in attack and max in speed. Kartana's not the bulkiest Pokemon anyway, so you're not really going to be, without good investment and really putting a lot of time into your EVing for Kartana, you're not going to be able to get much extra out of the EV spread without losing stuff to on the damage side of things. And I hope I'm explaining this alright and it's making a little bit of sense. So there's the Kartana there. It obviously offers nice grass support against opposing Tapu Finis with the Leaf Blade. Smart Strike hits Tapu Lele for super effective damage, Tapu Bulu, and then you've got the Sacred Sword, which gives you nice options against your fighting weak opponents and opposing Kartanas and Ninetales, etc. So that is the Kartana. We'll move on to the Magical Muck. Now this is the first time I've properly used Muck in the format, and I absolutely love it. I would suggest everyone that hasn't tried Muck up to this point to go away and try it out, because it is such a good Pokemon in this format. I think it's one of the best Alolan Pokemon that we've had introduced this format, and it's something I definitely will be taking forward with me and using in other cores and teams. The moveset that we've got on it is Poison Jab, Knock Off, Protect and Shadow Sneak. Shadow Sneak is there primarily for, you know, it's very good for breaking sashes when we haven't got the hail up. It's good just to kind of get that last bit of chip damage onto a Pokemon before it goes down, and it gives you the option to break that Mimikyu's Disguise in really tight situations for things like Kartana or Marowak to pick up a KO where it can in certain situations. The knockoff is invaluable with the Super Berries being as popular as they are in the format, like the Figgy Berry that we've got on this Muck, the Iapa Berry, Wiki Berries, etc, etc, and they're growing in popularity, and they're only going to get more popular, I think. Knockoff is such a good move to have in this metagame. It's good stab attack on Muck, it does very good damage, and it also knocks off those important items. And like we had Ben on the channel yesterday, and he was talking about the knockoff on his Hariyama, and he explained it as, you know, your opponent is going to have maybe 1 or 2 Z moves on their team, so there's definitely 4 other Pokemon on the team that you can knock off that will have items that will be crucial to their strategy. Getting rid of them really puts kind of the stoppers and any momentum they're trying to kind of build within the battle there. So good. You've got Poison Jab, which hits pretty much all the Tapus for very super effective damage. It has the obviously the added effect of the poison, poisoning your opponent as long as the Mystic Terrain's not up, so there's the added effect there. But just in general, Muck is a very good Pokemon. Now the EV spread is quite interesting, and one I did really like, and I think in a few episodes we did see how good the EV spread came across in battling, and it's nice to see that sometimes when you do just survive on, like, you know, 5 or 6 HP from a big threatening super effective attack, and it just goes to show on that survival means that the Muck gets that extra attack off and can just do that bit more damage that wins you the game. So it's quite nice to see that translate from the initial idea into battle. So one of the big things that I wanted to make sure, the defensive EVs, like I was saying, are quite interesting. The thing is that because when you look at the team, and like I mentioned before, how big a threat Gigalith was, it was one of the Pokemon I was quite wary about, and one of the problems is with Gigalith, if it's got the Rockium Z for the Continental Crush, I can't knock that off, and I want it to be able to at least survive that as best I can. And with 228 HP EVs and the 156, you're turning the Continental Crush from the Gigalith into basically a 2-hit KO. It's got a 6.3% chance to 1-hit KO, which is very good, and you would take that like 100% of the time. Then you look at things like Garchomp. The extra defenses are just going to kind of make it a bit easier for you to take the Earthquakes from it. It's got a 1.2% chance to 2-hit KO after the Figgy Berry, so that's something you would definitely take. So that means you're going to be able to take an Earthquake, you bury procs, and it's only got that 1.2% chance to KO you from that point, which is really, like, it's turning the Earthquake into a 3-hit KO. Even when you look at things like Crocodile, it's still got that 6.3% chance to 2-hit KO after the Figgy Berry proc. So the HP defense stat just give Muck a bit more versatility and staying power on the field to get those knockoffs off on things that you want it to hit the potential Tapus that are out next to, say, a Garchomp or a Crocodile or whatever, and it just gives you the option to, like I say, survive, get those extra attacks off, and that can be the difference between you sometimes winning or losing. So that was quite nice. Basically, I didn't feel as though I needed. I wanted primarily to turn the Earthquakes from the Garchomps and the Crocodiles into 3-hit KOs if I could, take some big attacks, and then the rest of the EVs were kind of just dumped as and where. Because the thing is, with even if you go 252 Adamant Muck, let's just do this for example on the Tapu Lele, it's still a roll on Tapu Leles, and this isn't even a very bulky Tapu Lele from the bulkier Tapu Leles that we're actually seeing coming into the format now. So you're not even going to be getting the 1-hit KO with the Poison Jab. So I felt like if I can just keep it beating a 2-hit KO, then that's fine. And with the 68 defense, 68 the attack EVs, we're still guaranteeing that. And even on a -1, like you would see Tapu Lele partnered with Arcanine, etc., etc. I'm saying etc. way too much today, guys, so I do apologise for that. I've got to stop doing that. I'm a bit tired today, but I want to just get this out, so I do apologise for all the etceteras, and I'm going to stop it right now. But like I was saying, Tapu Lele's very common partner is Arcanine, so it's got that Intimidate support to nerf the Muck. But even on a -1 with that 68 attack EV, we're still getting the 2-hit KO on your standard Tapu Lele, which is really nice. So you're not really missing out too much, because your opponent is going to try and intimidate your Muck, kind of nerf it as much as it can, so you kind of got to expect that. So just as long as you're kind of happy with that, and I was completely happy with the spread. I really liked the spread for what it did. It stuck around on the field, it did its job, it got those knockoffs off, it offered Shadow Sneak priority with the Shadow Sneak there to chip things down and get a last bit of damage off when you needed, and things like that. So the Muck really benefited very well from, I felt, from this spread in particular, and it was one of the better spreads I felt on the team that we were using. We've got the Figgy Berry with that gluttony ability that allows you just to proc the berry when you hit under 50% or less. So that's pretty nice, and that's pretty much the muck there. So we'll move on to the Marowak. Now the Marowak's a little interesting. You normally see quite either Trick Room orientated or very little speed investment on Marowak, but because the basic premise of our speed control in the team was the Mandibuzz and the Tailwind, I wanted to make sure that it was taking advantage of Marowak, and Marowak in a Tailwind is very strong and very scary for to face down on, because it's got such a huge attack stat with the Thick Club. It obviously disrupts things like Tapu Fini and Circuitry and your other electric type attacks, so it's putting a lot of pressure on that side of things. And then in a Tailwind, it's very threatening and potentially picking up KOs on a lot of Pokemon within the format. So it was definitely something I wanted to work on. If you see the EV spread here, I've got 132 EVs in speed with a Jolly Nature, so that's allowing me to hit that 90 speed stat. So in a Tailwind I'll be hitting 180 speed stat, which lets me outspeed things like Cortana, Ninetales and base 110 Pokemon and below that, so you Raichus, Gengars and things, which is really nice. I could have went a bit faster, but then the thing is you could only hit 106 speed, I think, with the Marowak. So let's just take this right down and get rid of this so I can just show you guys. I think you could only hit 106. Yeah, so 106 speed, so you'd be hitting 212 in a Tailwind, which is nice, which is super nice, and it's a very good speed. But then you're losing all the opportunity to have any sort of bulk in Marowak and kind of just make sure it's able to take some attacks better than others, and I felt that I didn't really need to hit any faster than the 90 speed stat, because when I'm 180, the only things that I would really need to worry about that would be outspeeding it in a Tailwind at that point would be things like Weavile, which you don't really see at all, Aerodactyl, which could be quite problematic, but other than that, you've only really got the faster threats, which aren't really threats, are the faster Pokemon in the format are your Tapu Koko and your Pheromosa, which Marowak has no problem. It wants to face those type of Pokemon all the time. So I didn't feel like there was any necessity in putting any more speed investment in the Marowak for what I wanted to do. We'll flick over to where we've got it on the damage calculator. So we do have 252 health, 36 attack, investment, 20 defense, 68 special defense, and that 132 in speed with a Jolly Nature. We are holding a Thick Club, and our move set is Flare Blitz, Shadow Bone, Boomerang, and Protect. So get rid of that there, and I felt like that was enough. I didn't really feel like changing too much on the Marowak. One thing I would probably change going forward would be I would change Boomerang to Stomping Tantrum, because of the accuracy on Boomerang. It did cost us sometimes, and the thing is with Stomping Tantrum, the Pokemon that you're going to be hitting with Boomerang a lot of the time will either have a berry, so they're not going to be able to be one-hit KO'd like Arcanine and Muck, because the berry will proc before you get that second hit off with the Boomerang, or things like Tapu Koko. So if we look at Tapu Koko here, and you don't necessarily need the Boomerang, because you don't really see too many sashed Tapu Kokos going around nowadays, and even if they were sashed, then you know you're gonna be more inclined to use things like Hail and maybe the Shadow Sneak or Priority to kind of get around that. The thing is, if your Boomerang misses and it's got a partner that can hit that Marowak for super effective damage, and you miss your Boomerang and the Marowak goes down, then Tapu Koko is free to kind of let loose on your team. So that's an option that I would definitely look at. I'd probably put a lot more attack investment in there to make sure it's getting the KO with Stomping Tantrum, which wouldn't really take too much, to be honest, because you could probably change to an Adamant Nature, and then just pump that up to, what are we going to do? Yeah, so we're not even needing that much. So 172 guarantees the KO with Stomping Tantrum, and it's 100% accurate. And the nice thing about the Stomping Tantrum is Sorry guys, I'll just sort this out. Yeah, nice thing about Stomping Tantrum is if it fails the previous turn, the next turn it doubles in power. So that is ridiculous. So if you hit him to protect, say the Tapu Koko protects that first turn, then as it's failed, the next turn you use the Stomping Tantrum and it hits, its base power is doubled, which is ridiculous. So that's something to think about and why it might be good, because you're kind of getting the same. If you kind of think that Boomerang 1 out of 2 times might miss, it's not 50% accurate, but let's say it does miss, you're kind of getting the same effect over using 2 Stomping Tantrums, even 1 and 2 are protecting it failing. And then the next one, I hope this is making sense. It kind of does in my head. I'm not really translating it very well. Thing is though, if you're just not really that confident with the accuracy of Boomerang and you don't like it and it's costing you games, there are alternatives, and Stomping Tantrum is a single target attack, so you're not going to be hitting your opponents like you would be if you use an Earthquake, so it's a nice option to have in there as well. So that is the Marowak. The EV spread is basically I've hardly got any attack investment, and that was because the Shadowbone, even on -1, no, we're not on -1. The Shadowbone, even with that attack investment, sorry, and we need to change the Jolly, is guaranteeing the KO on your Tapu Lele, which is super nice. You don't really need too much more than that. If we look at Celesteela, your bulky Celesteelas, you're getting the KO with the Flare Blitz as well, so that's really nice. So the thing is with Marowak, because of that thick club, you don't need too much investment in the attack stat really. You can for the extra damage, but you don't necessarily need it, so you can take that out and put it elsewhere. If we go back to Tapu Lele, I think the HP and the special defense stat allow us to take a Psychic in a Psychic terrain from a Tapu Lele 100% of the time, as long as it's not life orbed, but that is a modest 252 Tapu Lele, so that's a nice calculation to have there. Able to take the Psychic and then KO back with the Shadowbone, so that's a nice option. I don't think we've got too many other things other than, you know, we can take an Earthquake from a Garchomp, Crocodile. We're able to take the Earthquake and the Crunch just with that investment, so it's pretty basic, and it just covers a few kind of key areas, because the main thing is we just want to get Marowak in a Tailwind and start hitting things hard, and it's only going to be threatened by a few attacks outside that. Basically that's why I said the Tapu Lele here, because you can have Scarf Tapu Lele that will be outspeeding Marowak even in a Tailwind, so just having that assurance that you're able to survive the Psychic from the modest 252 variants, if it is holding the Choice Scarf, gives you that nice option to have something to get rid of it. The other thing is we've got 2 Dark types that we could switch in on those potential Psychics as well, but like I say, you can't always rely, it's like the Marowak, you can't always rely on Marowak being around on the field to support the team whenever there is an electric type attack coming out on something. It's nice to have that backup assurance, knowing that you're able to take that attack regardless if you've got that support network kind of in place or not. So that was just an option there. We'll move on to the Ninetales. So the Ninetales, again, a bit like the Kartana, but there's not really much. You know, you're running the Focus Sash on Ninetales. There's not really much point of messing around with it. I wanted the Timid because I wanted to hit the speed stat to make sure I was outspeeding things like Garchomp, at least speed time with opposing Kartanas as well. So I've got every chance to get a Blizzard off before they can attack me and potentially KO me. I'd rather have that option than being slower than them and losing every time. At least you're kind of maximising your chances with a 50-50 chance rather than just a 100% loss chance. So that was pretty straightforward. The rest was just dumped into Special Attack to kind of get the most out of Blizzard, Freeze Dry. And the reason I went for Freeze Dry is because if you look at the team, we've not really got any answers anywhere to Gyarados. I mean, we've got the Kartana and we've got the Leaf Blade, but if we're facing down against opposing Gyarados, especially because we're relying heavily on the Aurora Veil to kind of nerf the Dragon Dances and the attack power of the Gyarados, etc. And we don't have anything to cycle. I felt like I needed a really solid way to be able to potentially KO Gyarados or do heavy damage on it where possible, and Freeze Dry does allow you to do that. So I'll just click in and we'll do a quick calculation on the Gyarados, and you can see with the timid max investment on your standard, well, it's no investment HP for Gyarados, you're guaranteed that one hit KO, which is really nice. And even if they have investment, you're going to do a lot of damage to it regardless with the Freeze Dye. So it's a very good utility Pokemon. It gives you another option to hit opposing Tapu Finis, other water types as well. So it does come in handy, and especially if you've got Ninetales out in the field and the hail stops and you don't want to risk a Blizzard, you've still got that secondary Ice Stab move that you can hit into things like Garchomp and pick up the KO, so you're not risking a bit of a shaky accuracy in some situations. You've got that to kind of fall back on. The other things with Ninetales are it's primarily there for the Aurora Veil. The Blizzard again just takes advantage of the hail, hits things like Garchomp super hard, it hits opposing Mandibuzz very hard, it hits Drifblim really for good damage. It's just a very good support Pokemon and offers that weather as well, so we can disrupt our opponent's weather if they've brought it. Obviously it's not one of the best disruptors at all, but I think primarily it is there. It's got an option to disrupt weather if it needs to, but it's primarily there for the Aurora Veil and those fast stabbed ice attacks to give the team just coverage against things like Garchomp in particular, because the Marowak is threatened by Garchomp heavily, and a lot of the time you want to preserve the Marowak for as long as possible for the Lightning Rod, and your opponent is going to be kind of putting a big bullseye on the Marowak. So in some situations, if it can get rid of the Marowak, then its Tapu Koko can really sweep through the rest of the team. So that's the thing. If we've got something to get rid of the threat to Marowak with Ninetales, like the Garchomp, then we take that Pokemon out of the equation very easily and make it extremely difficult for your opponent to kind of operate how they want to operate within that battle scenario. So that I love Ninetales. I think it's a very underused Pokemon at the minute. I really am surprised it's not used more, especially for the Aurora Veil as well. And as we saw as well through this past week using Ben's team, he used Aurora Veil Ninetales to mad effects through his team. His team really revolves a lot around the Aurora Veil, and it really shows through how good that move is when you can get it off to support the rest of your cast. So that's really nice. And then we'll move on to our final Tapu Fini. So we've got Tapu Fini here, very standard Tapu Fini, leftovers, Calm Mind, Muddy Water, Moonblast and Protect. It's a similar set that we've run on the channel before, but I do love it. I think it's one of the best Tapu Fini sets. Oh, it's one of my favourite anyway. The Calm Mind just gives you such good options, allows you to take those big electric type attacks if you're threatened, if you can get a couple of boosts up, and then the power of Muddy Water and Moonblast are just really ridiculous once you've got a couple of Calm Minds up. The EV spread is actually an EV spread that Marcus Statler Yoshi created and used, and it was one that I wanted to test out. He uses a lot more EVs in special attack, and I really liked it because before this I kind of went more bulk, more defensive EVs and not as much attack EVs, and it makes such a difference, the attacking EVs on this spread. It's very good, so I definitely recommend trying this out, guys. If you're going to use a Calm Mind Tapu Fini, you can look at different item options. Obviously you could use a Super Berry, like a Wiki Berry or something like that, that's seeing a lot of usage at the minute, and for good merit as well, because you're getting a lot more health back overall with that berry than you are with the leftovers, with how long Tapu Fini stays on the field, and you know, the health gaining back, the berry works out a lot more beneficial in a lot of occasions than the leftovers would. So it's definitely another option. So yeah, if we take a look at like Marcus's spread, it's he's got 252 health, 12 defense EVs, 188 special attack, 4 special defense, and 52 speed. So like I said before, I kind of tended to use a more defensive Tapu Fini, but I did want to try this out, and I was really impressed with the damage output difference between this one and the previous ones that I have used that have been a bit more bulkier. And I didn't really miss the less defensive EVs either than what we've got here. So I think some of the big calculations that Marcus had kind of outlined when building this were the poison jab from a Garchomp. It has a 5.1% chance to 2-hit KO after the leftovers recovery, which is huge. So that's going to be, you know, a 3-hit KO most of the time, and you're easily guaranteeing a 2-hit KO back with the Moonblast. And especially if you've had a boost, then that's definitely a 1-hit KO, isn't it? So that's super nice. I think at the time as well, Assault Vest Kartana was pretty huge, 20 attack EV investment there, but you've got the 6.3% chance to survive the Leaf Blade from Kartana, and that's not even intimidated, so that's pretty huge. And there's not a lot of defense investment there, which is really nice. The other thing as well, Tapu Koko, you can have a look at Tapu Koko, and in misty terrain you're easily taking the Life Orb Thunderbolt from Tapu Koko, which is really nice. And if you know you're 2-hit KO on it back, you're not in a position where you're going to be able to take. But if you're in a Tailwind and you can outspeed it, or we've got Marowak as well to kind of cover that as well, you're going to be able to pick up the KO and deal with that Tapu Koko. But in the worst situation ever, you know you can take a Life Orb Thunderbolt as long as you've got the terrain up in your favour. That's something else to think about. And the basic premise with the Tapu Fini from Marcus's point of view was to try and get the Tailwind up, get a couple of Calm Minds, and try and set that situation up where you can kind of just win the game. And he had very good success with it, winning the regional in Leisbing in Germany, obviously with this Tapu Fini. So it's very good, and Marcus is an amazing player, so it does kind of translate. And I was, like I say, very impressed with the damage output compared to Tapu Finis that I've used in the past that haven't had as much output as normal as as them. So yeah, that kind of rounds off the team. We've got Muddy Water, Moonblast for coverage there, and the Muddy Water is just a ridiculous move. It does miss sometimes, but when you get accuracy drops on your opponent and things like that, that can be the difference sometimes between you winning or losing a game, depending on whether they hit or not. But guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. I do apologise, it's probably been a bit of a struggle getting through this to this point. I'm a little under the weather today. I'm not feeling 100% myself, but I did want to get this out today, and I hope it's made sense and give you a few ideas and insights into how you can kind of go about possibly, just picking different routes around team building and things like that, and starting points. Like I say, I have those 3 basic starting points in this format anyway. I want something with terrain, I want a weather of some sort, and I definitely want speed control. And then from there you kind of go on. As long as you've got that starting point, you can go into loads of different directions with the team as well. And there are many different options with a lot of these Pokemon. Like I said, I'd probably try and include Snarl on the Mandibuzz. That gives additional support for the rest of the team. The Kartana I would totally change up. I think you've got the very popular Scorp Lens set at the minute. I don't know if I would go for that, but I do like the Focus Sash, but then it kind of conflicts with the Ninetales, so you've got to be a bit careful with the Focus Sash. So there are other options you could use there. Assault Vest would probably be a nice option to use, as we saw with Ben's team. He used the Aurora Veil with the Assault Vest to boost that Assault Vest even more. So that's probably what I would change to, and then just go Night Slash on the Kartana. Obviously change the EV spread up. The Muck, what I would do with the Muck, I think I would take Shadow Sneak off. Didn't really use it very much, and I'd probably put a bit more investment in speed and run in Prison, because then it shuts down opposing Mucks. It stops any you know, stray poison jabs from your opponent onto things like Tapu Fini, Ninetales. With the Imprison as well, you can sit on the field and completely protect your Marowak from opposing mucks. The same really goes for Tapu Fini as well if there's a muck on the field. So that's definitely something I would change. I think Imprison muck is absolutely ridiculous, and it's just about kind of getting the speed stat right, so you're outspeeding opposing mucks in those situations. The Marowak I am quite happy with. To be honest, when we were playing it, I didn't play it as much in Tailwind as I probably initially thought I would. But when it was in Tailwind, it was extremely strong, and it did the job that you kind of wanted it to. Might be worth going a bit more defensive with it and dropping the speed down. But then again, in the Tailwind, it does give you nice options with that speed stat to easily deal comfortably with and confidently with things like Cortana and opposing Ninetales and other faster threats. The Ninetales is brilliant. I don't think I would change a thing about the Ninetales. There's obviously options like Encore that you could run on it, but I don't really see any need to. This moveset is quite straightforward, straight down the line. You know the job that it's doing, and sometimes you don't have to overcomplicate a Pokemon. That's kind of one of the things that I'm trying to get through in this video. Like the Cortana and the Ninetales are very simple sets and spreads, and they don't need overcomplicating because they're there to do a job, and they're there to do and changing it isn't really going to get you any more leeway in that. So that's that. And then you've got the Tapu Fini to round things off, and I don't think I'd change anything with that. It's pretty good. Like I said, you could look at putting a Wiki Berry on it, or one of the Super Berries to take advantage of it that side, but other than that, I really was quite happy, and the team overall was very good. I missed Intimidate, but then it's where do we fit that in? And you know, there's also other options you could look at in there to kind of support the team on the defensive side, but you're probably going to have to change your slot up. But overall, I was quite happy with the team. I think we went we only lost 4 matches with it over a 2-week period, which isn't bad at all. So what I'll do, guys, I will leave a Pastebin of the team in the description below if you guys want to go ahead and try it out or take any bits of it away and put into your own little project. If you've got any questions at all about the team, like I say, I am feeling a bit under the weather today, so it's a bit I'm not thinking as clearly as I normally would, so I do apologize for that, guys, but I did want to just get this out there for you today. And yeah, if you've got any questions, just ask away. If you've enjoyed the episode, please leave a like on the video. It's massively appreciated, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, because coming Monday we have a brand new team and it's very exciting, and I can't wait to feature it on the channel and show you guys all about it. And hopefully the next team review episode that we do with that team will be a bit more upbeat and a bit more makes sense and less slurry than this one. Hopefully I am going to finish up now, go to bed, I think, and rest up. I really hope you guys are having an amazing weekend, and I can't wait to get back on the episodes on Monday, and we will be back with a QR code as well. So get your requests in, guys. Get those requests in. What Pokemon you want to see on the QR code. We have got some requests already, so we might do a few sneaky ones of those to start the week off, but then we need to get that list started. So do put your requests in for Pokemon that you want to see on that, and I'll leave things there, guys. You go and enjoy the rest of your weekends. Take care of yourselves, whatever you're doing, and it's always a pleasure. And until Monday, I will see you later, guys. So bye bye.